We kept seeing the same story everywhere. 14 trucks buried at Bingham Canyon. Caterpillar 793s. The internet is full of it. So we checked. None of that is right. The trucks were Komatsu 930Es, not Caterpillar. There were 13, not 14. The 3 rope shovels buried under 300 feet of rock were P and H 4100Cs, each worth $45 million. But the real number nobody talks about is this one. Geologists told mine management that 10% of the pit floor would be hit. The slide covered 95%. They moved the equipment into the kill zone and called it safe. This is the story of how the smartest prediction in mining history still got the ending wrong. Bingham Canyon Copper Mine sits about 20 miles southwest of Salt Lake City, carved into the Oquirrh Mountains like a wound that has been open for over 100 years. 3/4 of a mile deep, 2.5 miles across. You can see it from space. It has produced more copper than any mine on Earth, somewhere north of 20 million tons since 1906. And it belongs to Rio Tinto through their subsidiary Kennecott, Utah Copper. By 2012, the mine's northeast wall had a problem. Deep inside the rock, a prehistoric fault called the Manefay runs at a shallow angle, roughly 21 degrees off horizontal. Think of a tilted dinner plate buried inside a mountain. The rock above that plate had been sliding slowly for decades, fractions of an inch per year, and Kennecott's geotechnical team had been watching it the entire time. But in November 2012, something changed. The movement accelerated. By early February 2013, the slope radar was picking up rates that had never been recorded before at the mine. The team was staring at a wall of rock 1,300 meters wide, 500 meters tall, and over 200 meters thick, and it was pulling away from the mountain. If you want to hear what happened when that wall let go, like and subscribe. We are trying to reach 1,000 subscribers, and it tells us these stories are worth the research. The man in charge of reading the data had been at Bingham Canyon for 6 weeks. Brad Ross had a PhD in geotechnical engineering and decades of experience. He had arrived at the mine in late February 2013 to lead long-term slope studies. Within days of showing up, his team was tracking what would become the largest non-volcanic landslide in modern North American history. They called it. 2 months before the wall collapsed, Kennecott's geotechnical team told management the failure was coming. They knew where. They knew approximately when. They started pulling infrastructure out of the path. The visitor center, which sat directly in the source zone at the top of the northeast wall, was physically removed by April 1st. Roads were rerouted. Utilities were relocated. Buildings were torn down. On the morning of April 10th, 2013, the slope radar showed movement hitting 2 inches per day. That was Kennecott's predefined threshold for imminent failure. By 11 in the morning, every worker in the affected zone was out. All 800 people who worked the pit floor were cleared. At 2:38 in the afternoon, Kennecott issued a public press release warning that a slide was imminent and that rising dust might become visible from Salt Lake City. Then they waited. And while they waited, the equipment sat at the bottom of a hole 3/4 of a mile deep. 13 Komatsu 930E haul trucks, each one 24 feet tall, carrying 320 tons per load, worth roughly $5 million each. 3 P&H 4100C electric rope shovels, the kind of machine that fills one of those trucks in 4 passes, worth $45 million each. 3 blast hole drills, a fuel depot holding 83,000 gallons of diesel, 13,000 gallons of oil, and 5,000 gallons of coolant. A complete truck maintenance hangar that Kennecott called the 6190 facility. All of it was positioned on the pit floor in what the runout model said was safe ground. The model was based on a century of experience with wedge failures and circular slip surfaces, the kind of slides Bingham Canyon had always seen. Small ones, predictable ones. The geologists assumed this slide would behave the same way, just bigger. It did not. Like and subscribe if you have ever seen a run-out model get it this wrong. And tell us in the comments, would you have trusted the model or moved the trucks to the surface? At 9:30 that night, Mountain Daylight Time, during a rainstorm, in total darkness, the first rock avalanche released from the northeast wall. 90 seconds later, 100 million tons of quartzite and hornfells detached along the Manefay Fault at a friction angle of just 10 degrees. The mass accelerated down the wall and hit a bend in the pit geometry that redirected it south. Peak velocity at that bend was roughly 170 miles per hour. Nobody saw it. The University of Utah seismograph network recorded the signal, but their standard earthquake detection algorithms missed it entirely because landslides do not produce the sharp P waves that earthquakes do. The local magnitude registered 2.5. The surface wave magnitude was 5.1. That gap, negative 1.7 magnitude units compared to a normal Utah average of negative 0.12, is the seismological fingerprint of rock moving as a mass instead of fracturing at a point. 95 minutes later, just after 11 at night, the second avalanche released. 50 million more tons. This one carried waste rock from dump material piled on the ridge crest, which gave it a different color in the aerial photos the next morning. Peak velocity on the second slide was even higher, 190 miles per hour. Researchers later identified a possible airborne phase from an air-coupled Rayleigh wave in the infrasound data, meaning part of the rock mass may have briefly left the ground entirely. Between and after those two main avalanches, at least 11 additional smaller slides came down, ranging from 10,000 to 100,000 cubic meters each. And over the next 10 days, the University of Utah recorded 16 triggered earthquakes underneath the slide deposit. This was the first documented case in recorded history of a landslide triggering earthquakes rather than the other way around. When the sun came up on April 11th, the pit floor was buried under 300 feet of debris across 95% of its surface. The haul trucks were gone. The shovels were gone. The fuel depot, the maintenance building, the drills, all of it was under rock. Aerial photos from the press tour 2 weeks later showed truck beds poking out of the debris like matchbox toys. The total volume was 52 to 55 million cubic meters of intact rock. NASA calculated that it was enough material to bury Central Park 20 meters deep. It eclipsed the 1903 Frank Slide in Alberta, the 1959 Madison Canyon Slide in Montana, and the 2010 Mount Meager Slide in British Columbia. And it happened at a mine that had been operating since Teddy Roosevelt was president. But the mine did not shut down for long. Because Bingham Canyon has a secret buried deeper than any haul truck. The in-pit crusher and the underground conveyor tunnel that carries ore through the mountain to the Copperton concentrator survived the slide completely intact. Bingham Canyon does not move ore by truck to the surface. It crushes ore at the bottom of the pit and conveys it underground. So Kennecott did not need to rebuild the destroyed main haul road to feed the mill. They needed access to the surviving lower benches through a secondary switchback. 3 days after the slide, overburden removal restarted in unaffected sectors. 6 days after, stockpiled ore was moving to Copperton. 17 days after 165 million tons of rock buried every piece of equipment on the pit floor, freshly mined ore was reaching the crusher again. The emergency procurement was massive. 38 bulldozers, including Caterpillar D11s, were delivered within 3 weeks by Wheeler Machinery out of Salt Lake City. 20 replacement Komatsu 930E haul trucks arrived, the first commissioned on June 30th, and the 20th on October 31st. A P&H 4100X PC shovel was diverted from another mine and assembled in 90 days. A Hitachi EX5600 hydraulic excavator was assembled at the bottom of the new access road. More than 20 machines were retrofitted with remote control for work in unstable zones where manned access was too dangerous. Rio Tinto took a $547 million pre-tax charge. After insurance, the net hit was $283 million. The company's full-year earnings still rose 10%. They absorbed it. But the deeper cost came 2 years later. The east wall stability reappraisal forced a 5-to-1 stripping ratio, the highest in the mine's 110-year history, and 2015 became Bingham Canyon's lowest production year since it was shut down entirely in 1986. And here is the detail that should keep every geotechnical engineer awake at night. After the slide, researchers at the University of Western Australia went back and reanalyzed archived RadarSat-2 satellite data from the years before the failure. The INSAR imagery showed significant ground deformation at the eventual headwall for years before the wall came down. The data existed. A Rio Tinto-sponsored research project had been collecting it. It was sitting in an archive, never plugged into the operational warning system. They predicted the slide. They evacuated the people. But they parked $250 million in equipment exactly where the mountain was going to put it. And the data that could have told them the runout was wrong had been sitting on a university hard drive the entire time. Bingham Canyon is still operating today. Still the deepest open-pit mine on Earth at 3,900 feet. Rio Tinto has invested over $2 billion in expansion since the slide, including underground mining that will extend the operation past 2032. The slide scar is still visible from satellite imagery, and the Manefay Fault is still there, 21 degrees off horizontal, running through the mountain like it has for 100 million years. If you made it this far, you already know these stories matter. Like and subscribe, and tell us in the comments what is the most expensive equipment loss you have ever seen on a job site. We will see you in the next one.